All right, let's get this thing going. To the coarsely slothful and wishy-washy writers of Persona 5, sirs and madams, for numerous years, your storytelling efforts have aimed to emphasize the significance of pursuing independence and self-betterment, eradicating sloth and laziness from one's own character, a pursuit that ranks among the most utmost of priorities for any individual. After creating one story, you then decided to expand upon it in the most royal of methods. Within this retelling of a classic tale, you elected to include a young girl split in two, who instead of criticizing all of society or any of its slothful aspects, it was to be a more personal story about grief, loss, and the cold of the soul. Generally, this young lady has struck a chord with those who lent their ear to her plight, but lo, it was sorely mishandled. Like many others, I was excited to see how she would play her part, only to be snubbed by the aspects of thine own tale that you refused to change or write over. With this fairly full commit by adding this young lady to your retelling of such a classic tale, you appear wishy-washy, making it truly difficult to ascertain the strengths of her character and the strength of this tale in particular. While your intent for this young lady remains intact, we are very much disappointed to see such potential greatness be squandered. Thus, we have decided to steal away those desires, and we will do so without fail. From the Phantom Thieves of Hearts. Hey guys, XBadgerKnight here, and I'm here to tell you that the new episode of Season 2 of Dichotomy of a Character is finally complete and will be premiering on YouTube this Saturday, December 2nd at noon EST. It's been a long time coming since we first started this journey together, and before I say anything else about the matter, including her recovering this time and why, I have a few people to thank for their unyielding support for the series. Special thanks to my Patreons and confidants over on my Patreon page. Shout out to Maya Amano from Persona 2 Original Sin PSP, Maxio, and Tyler Yanez. We're supporting this channel in particular and making long-form videos like mine possible. Of course, by choosing to support the channel, all my Patrons will not only be able to influence what content I produce and in what order, but you'll also receive early access to my content, such as our future coverage of Gordo Akechi, weeks or often months before I ever release it anywhere else. As a matter of fact, part 1 of the whole Akechi analysis is already available on Patreon for all to see. So if that's the kind of thing that interests you, or if you want to drive the channel in a specific direction, head on over to my Patreon page. There's a few extras in there, such as full access to my scripts, commissioned art reviews for my videos, and other behind-the-scenes goodies included in there as well. If any of that interests you, if you want to support the channel and drive it in a specific direction, head on over to patreon.com/XBadgerKnightX. Anyway, I digress for now. In this episode of Season 2 of Dichotomy of a Character, we're finally covering
Shall we?
Yoshizawa. A controversial character to some due to how the plot treats her, Kasumi occupies a strange niche in the overall story of Persona 5. We're going to touch upon this a bit more in Akechi's own video in the future, but I personally find it strange that Yoshizawa is treated more as a plot device or even a MacGuffin rather than an actual character at times within the game. If anything, I'd say that it's less about her being something of a Mary Sue or the writer's pet, and more about how strangely the third semester's content seems to be less concerned with Yoshizawa's impact on the overall plot, and more about Akechi's relationship with Joker. You'd think that her relationship to the Fauna Palace rule of the game and Yoshizawa herself being credited solely for the royal version of Persona 5, she'd get more airtime in the game, but of course, we'll talk about all this in due time. However, despite all my grievances about her inclusion into the plot and how she's mishandled, I still think Yoshizawa's story is worth remembering and cherishing. After finally getting around to playing a complete Persona 5 Royal, Kasumi Yoshizawa has become one of my favorite characters both in Persona 5 and within gaming history, which is kind of odd in retrospect. It's funny, for the hours upon hours it took explaining away the Japanese sociological issues on Ryuji, Makoto, and when we eventually get around to covering him, Akechi tended to grapple with as a form of criticism of Japanese society, Yoshizawa doesn't really offer the same level of critique. Instead, what we find is a very personally driven story as Yoshizawa grapples with grief, guilt, and what is most definitely undiagnosed clinical depression. Depression in of itself in Japanese society carries with it a certain stigma, to such a degree that it's often referred to as the cold of the soul. Of course, comparing Yoshizawa's condition to something like a pesky cold is an incredibly ignorant sentiment to hold. Combine this smarmy ignorance with someone who must perform and place well in competitions as an athlete, we find where the initial conflict for Yoshizawa lies. This is the key to her struggles within the plot of the game, and within that, perhaps, lies a critique about how collective societies, such as Japan's, choose to treat or rather do not effectively treat chronic mental health issues. This also makes Dr. Maruki's position within the plot and his relevance to Yoshizawa's character arc rather unique as her acting mental health counselor as well, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. One aspect of Yoshizawa and her character writing that has always stuck with me is how, despite being severely traumatized and racked with guilt, despite being manipulated and lied to at every single turn, she finds the power to overcome that tragedy and rises above even herself. I say this because, as we find out, unlike the rest of the Phantom Thieves, Yoshizawa's Spirit Rebellion doesn't have any general beef with society. As a matter of fact, in Yoshizawa's case, it's not society or any powerful untouchable like Kamoshida or Shido that's oppressing Yoshizawa in particular, but actually, she herself is her own greatest oppressor and the only obstacle to her own personal sense of rebellion. That is to say that Yoshizawa is a rebel without a cause, and in order to continue to grow as a person, she must continue rebelling against herself. She must continue to resist the call of the void by rebuilding a positive self-image of herself once more. Rebelling against yourself, to be locked within an eternal constant conflict with yourself, seems like a tall order, but considering the message that Atlas is trying to deliver with Yoshizawa's character, concerning suicidal isolation and depression intertwining with a slothful society that Persona 5 presents us with, it makes the manner in which Sumi decides to rebel all the more worthwhile. Joker says it best, Sumi is one tough lady, and this surprises those who thought that she would never be capable of leveraging that pain to improve herself.
You know, I would love for that to be the truth. But people can't maintain their strength forever.
Oh, we'll see about that, Mr. Lovecraftian Fairy Godfather. Holy shit, and do I think the Persona community is way too kind to you as a villain. But we'll talk about that in due time. As we continue on, we'll begin to see this aspect of Sumi's character thrice over. The ability for her to tough things out as she discovers how to be herself in more ways than one. This want of individuality defines Sumi's character, and thus it's from this perspective that we'll be asking and answering the following questions within this rather lengthy video essay, as we thoroughly analyze the character arc and ethos of Persona 5 Sumi Yoshizawa. I hope to see you all this Saturday, December 2nd at noon for this next exciting installment of Dichotomy of a Character. If you want to stick around after this point, I'll have the title cards lined up here so you kind of know what to expect as we delve back into Yoshizawa herself when the time does come. Anyway, I'm Badger Knight, and I'll see you all this Saturday. Bye-bye!
Enough of this. Yoshizawa? You're telling me I'm not cutting it? As if I don't know that better than anyone! Still, I don't care what anyone says about me. I will not tolerate anyone speaking ill of our dream! It's all in your best interest. Filling my life with this pressure. Demanding the results that you want. Yoshizawa? Could she be? And now you're all branding me a failure? Let me remind you who you're talking to. I am Kasumi Yoshizawa!
So adamant. Rather than accept life in cinders, you'd strive towards splendor. You know the risks. Well, if those really are the shoes you've chosen, then we'll dance to the end.
This has got to be... Look at that!
I am thou art I. Accept this contract, the spell cast upon you.
I request we have a rematch. This time, I'm going all in with Cendrillon! And took your hand. But I knew all along, deep down, pretending to be Kasumi was not the right way. The weak, insecure Sumire dies today! Violet. You were the one. The only one who stayed true to yourself. Come, Cendrillon! If you don't answer my call now, how else can we make our dream come true?
Such tenacity. It seems to fit you better than ever before. The glass slippers are the icon of glory. Not just for you, but the other girl within you as well. I am thou, thou art I. Are you prepared for your debut? The ball awaits.
Certainly. That's it.
And I believe you called forth your power like this. Persona. Rumi. And I believe you called forth your power like this. Persona.
I don't want to go back to my life in cinders ever again!
I won't fail. I can't fail. Yoshizawa-san, that pain you're suffering, it must be impossible to move on. I want to save you from that awful life.
I am myself. I'll never forget that again.
And within that, it's time to take back reality. So sit back, relax, and pump that jam!
We've come this far, we ain't gonna give up!
You gotta do way better than this!
Don't underestimate our tenacity!
It's just another threat. We'll overcome it like we always do! If I run now, I know I'll regret it! We'll decide for ourselves what we want our lives to be!
I'm a bit occupied, so do your goddamn job!
Oracle! How does it look? Perfect! His head's defense level has dropped down to 0%! Go for it! Finish this, Joker!